Okay, so I think I'll just do a short video here on the optional exercise because although these are not things that'll give you any fundamentally new tool in the toolbox, these are all things you can just do with ordinary for loops. They are things that sort of showcase some really nice features of Python that allows you to write a much nicer code than if you were restricted to just writing for loops. So the first function is the enumerate function. I'll just start with that because it's the simpler to explain. So I think the way I'll showcase this is using a file, I think. So let's call this for coolstuff.py. Okay, so here's a common problem. You got a list of names. So Birger, Anne, Carlsen, Dylan, and what you want to do is you want to basically print out all of these names on a line each. That is a standard problem. That's not an enumerate problem. It's just to get us started. So how can we do that? Well, we can do for name in names, print name is comma name, like this. Okay, so it should be no surprise that now the output looks like this. However, what if I actually wanted to write out name of person, n is name, and n should be the number of the person, so it should be 0 for Birger and 1 for Anna and so on. That's a common problem. I could do that in a number of ways. I could loop over the index of the person and then I could get the name. I could, keep track of n and then increase it by 1 each time the for loop evaluates. I could do a couple of things, but couldn't I just do it in one line by changing something here? Because I really want to loop over the names, but I also want the n. And the answer is yes, I can. I can put in n here, and then I can use enumerate names. And this is just going to work. So then I need to put in n, and I'll just format this. This is completely regular string formatting. And now, when I run it, it looks like this. Maybe I should remove the extra space. So really convenient way of looping over a list and getting the indexes of the list in one go. And there's nothing really mysterious over this. This is just using tuple unpacking. So if let's say I insert a breakpoint here, just so I can access these variables and select debugger, we can actually take this enumerate names and see what it is. By converting it to a list, we can see that it just, behind the scenes, it just effectively creates a list of tuples where it appends 0 to the first element, 1 to the second element, so on and so forth. And then when we loop like this syntax, we actually do tuple unpacking. So remember that this will mean that n will be initialized to the first element here, and name will be initialized to the second element of the tuple. So that's what enumerate does behind the scenes. Super convenient and super cool feature. Okay. So let's suppose that I have a list of the pets that we have. So dog, rock, bird, like this. These are their pets. And now what I want to do is I don't want to loop over n anymore. That's too boring. I just want to loop over the names. And then let's just reset. Let's start by resetting to just printing out what we had before. So now this code is doing what it did originally, but I want to basically write out person, whatever, has a pet, and then I want to write out the pet here. But here's something annoying, right? Like, because I'm looping over one list, and I want to get the corresponding index in the second list in a reliable way. And again, we can do this in a number of ways. Maybe instead of looping over names, I loop over the index, and then I need to index both lists, and that's a little bit boring and annoying. What I can do instead is I can use the zip function. So if I use zip names and pets, this will work. And then I just insert pet here. Now it's kind of going to take these two lists and mash them together so this magically works. We'll look at what it does behind the scenes, because it's actually not that difficult to understand when we see it. So now it prints out what pet they have. So what does this do behind the scenes? Well, if we just convert this to a list and remove the colon, we can actually see that it also just do some stuff with the tuples. So it takes each of the elements of the first list here and mash them together with the second element with the corresponding element of the second list, and create a list of tuples. And then when I loop like this, it just do tuple unpacking. So that's what it does behind the scenes. But this is an example of how we can use the zip function. Let's look at the last idea. So that was to also have a number, a name, and some kind of property. So how can we do that? So let's say we want to write out person n is, and then the name, and then has a pet, and then the pet, like that has the same pattern as the last exercise, but we need n to be what number the person is. Well, we can combine all of these ideas. So if I do enumerate like this, and then I go in and I say, these are what I get out of zip, and enumerate has the index as the first element, so what we call n, then I can actually do this. Let's not have the double space. And now, when I run all of this stuff, it just magically works. I remember that I found this pretty difficult to work with when I saw it at first, especially the zip function. I've had a little bit easier time understanding the enumerate function after a couple of examples. But after some time you get used to it, and it just turns out to be super convenient in all sorts of situations. Let's actually see if we can get a... Okay, so it prints it out a little bit funny. But it basically just creates... effectively it just creates a data structure that looks like 0, comma, and then it looks like BOR, comma, dog, and then on the second element it's like 1, comma, Anna, comma, rock, and so on. Right? That's basically what it does behind the scenes. Okay, so zip and enumerate. I think for your sake it's something you can perhaps experiment a little bit, but it's mostly at this point I think it's something that's just good to be aware of, so if you see it in other people's code, you recognize that, oh well, it's a concept that I've seen before and it's not overly complicated. And then I think after a little while you'll get familiar with these methods and you'll really end up liking them. But that's basically what I have to say about zip and enumerate for now. So good luck experimenting.